Welcome back. Reaction is pouring in after the Holy Father granted a rare sit-down interview to the U.S. television network CBS and its program 60 Minutes. Pope Francis discussed a number of issues, including immigration and church teaching on same-sex relationships and more.
Last year, you decided to allow Catholic priests to bless same-sex couples. That's a big change. Why?
No, what I allowed was not to bless the union. That cannot be done because that is not the sacrament.
And joining us now with analysis is Dr. Matthew Bunson, Vice President and Editorial Director for EWTN News. Matthew, always great to be with you.
A pleasure to be here.
So first off, your overall take on this interview, and why do you think the Holy Father gave an interview to an American secular network?
The best way to describe this interview is classic Francis. He was interviewed by what would be perceived as a fairly friendly secular outlet, in this case CBS News, 60 Minutes. But he was also then afforded the opportunity to hit on so many of the key themes that he considers important at this juncture for the church: immigration, surrogacy, war and peace, the plight of children, the sex abuse crisis in the church. So all of these things are part of his outreach to secular media. You asked, what's the significance of that? Well, the answer is that he has, over this last decade, given a number of interviews to secular outlets in Mexico, in Brazil, in Italy, in Spain. So for Francis, this is part of a wider communication strategy of reaching out to secular outlets in order to have direct, very direct contact with a global audience, in this case, an American one.
Yeah, and jumping off of that, Matthew, I mean, do you think we'll see more of these interviews?
I don't think there's any question that Pope Francis will be using this as a medium as he continues his pontificate. He sees this again as a way of speaking directly to an audience, in this case, again, an American audience, and it's one of the reasons I think why he chose CBS.
Yeah, I want to get a little bit into the meat of this interview.
Yeah.
What else really stood out to you about it?
Well, a couple of things. One thing is his very keen focus on immigration. He raised and was asked about immigration. Now, let's always remember that when we're talking about Pope Francis, we're not simply talking about the southern border of the United States. From his standpoint, this is a global phenomenon. Hundreds of millions of people are on the move, so it's very close to his heart. What he does in this interview is to reiterate the Church's classic Catholic social teaching on the dignity of the human person, of the migrant. But then he also, and I think Norah O'Donnell may have been a little surprised at this, reiterates that what happens for a country that is inundated with immigrants, he raised the specter that they might be deported, they might be sent home. Again, respecting the rights of a country, but also calling on everyone to respect the dignity of migrants all over the world.
Yeah, and Norah O'Donnell also asked about surrogacy. Let's touch on that.
Yeah, so Pope Francis reiterated church teaching. He has been very vocal on the issue of surrogacy, calling for a worldwide ban. Again, clarifying or trying to clarify, the phrase that comes to mind when we watch Pope Francis is, it's a technical term, pastoral solicitude. He's always speaking as a pastor. That's what he does in this case with surrogacy, but reiterating what the Church actually teaches. Again, he corrected Norah O'Donnell, for example, on the question of the blessing of, she thought, same-sex unions. He emphasized in Fiducia Supplicans the blessing of same-sex persons and couples. So again, it's Francis reiterating church teaching, but doing so in a very pastoral fashion, and that came through repeatedly in this interview.
Yeah, she also asked about conservatives in the church.
The viral moment, I think, for Francis in this interview was, and we've seen it play out on social media, is his comment about conservatives as clinging really basically to the past and putting themselves in a kind of dogmatic box. But he also says it's suicidal. One of the things that he is trying to do here, using CBS, is to speak to an American audience of those that he thinks are really resisting his project of reform. And in that sense, there's also nothing really new here either in this interview, in part because we have seen him make many references to conservatives, so-called, people who are resisting his approach of reform. He uses the Italian word indietrismo, which is sort of backwardness or backward looking. And you can see echoes of that very approach in his comments about his American critics. But again, he's speaking very specifically here to an American audience.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have to leave it right there. Much more we could talk about. Dr. Bunson, always great to get your analysis. Appreciate
Great to be with you.